filter tools here, the filter gallery. Also Liquify, that's a way to make some very incredible changes. So that's this one here. And so that's under the filter menu. And also we're going to do some very basic things with adjustments. So the two that are great to start with are levels to help create contrast and hue saturation for color correction. And last but not least, I'm going to show you a couple more tools. There's this one called the Keeling Brush. That one helps fix blemishes on your face, or in the little sample here, you can see that it takes out, it's a tool that will sample in pixels from out around the area that you're selecting and fill them in and make it look seamless. We'll also take a look at this thing called the cloning stamp, which the healing brush can work so far, but there's also a manual brush that works really well with lots of control. So let's start first with the craziest tool ever, which is Liquify. So that's under the filter menu, Liquify. So make sure you have, if you've already added some other pictures, make sure you have your layer selected that you're in. And we have this layer right here, and you can see there's a grid on it. The grid is what's going to control the pixels, and it's a type of mesh that if I make any changes here, see that how seamless it appears. See how I can move things around. So the mesh is there for a reason. It's so don't worry about it as being a bit of a distraction, but it's got to be there. I believe you can turn that off. But if you go, that's the brush tool that I was using, this first little brush tool up here. So let me move this over into the frame. So that's this brush tool. So there are several tools here you can have fun with. The bloat tool, make things bigger. You can actually reverse that with the making things smaller. So there's lots of fun that you can have with these tools. But the most crazy part of this is if you take a look at the properties on the right hand side and you see face aware. What on earth is face aware? Well, eyes are not the thing I would tend to use, but look how you can move your eyes closer and further apart. And this mesh here is what's allowing it to look practically seamless. Let me reset my eyes here to 0. But the problem with moving eyes or changing eyes is it's the most notable part of a person's face that you recognize. So if you hid everything else about this face and only saw the eyes, you could probably recognize that person. So if we distort that, it then becomes obvious. So if you've never met that person before, you might be able to get away with it. But in most cases, that's what truly identifies a person. So we can just leave the eyes alone. So I'm going to close the eyes here and the nose. So what can I do with the nose? Well, I can actually make it shorter. I can make it longer. I know it's crazy what you can do in here. You can change the nose width if I want a narrower nose. See how seamless that works with the mesh? It's pretty crazy. So that's playing with the nose. And if you didn't smile enough, I get accused of this all the time, you can actually increase the smile. Look at that. You can go the other way too. Isn't that crazy? So I'm smiling more. I can increase the size of my upper lip. I basically have no upper lip, so I can always increase the size of that. You can make the bottom lip bigger, so it's kind of like getting a bit of fillers put in. I can change the width of my mouth. I can make it quite a bit wider. And the mouth height. So you can do all sorts of, actually it looks like I'm talking. Hello, how are you? So there's lots of things that you can do here. So I've increased my smile here. And there's a whole bunch of other options here, but those are the fun things that you can do here. And so when I hit OK, if I go back to my history palette, remember you can find your history palette under the window menu here. this is a great tool to have open, a box to have open, so you can go backwards. So there's the before I made the Liquify change, and there's the after. So I've literally made myself smile a little bit more. Crazy, right? But the crazy thing too, though, is it's quite seamless looking. So when you look at magazines, people really don't look like what they really look like. So that's the Liquify tool, that filter. There are other filters you can play with under here, like the filter gallery, so you can turn yourself into artwork. There's a whole bunch of filters here that you can play with. And so you can totally change yourself into a piece of artwork. So that's watercolor, and then you can change the brush detail. So all the options for each one of those are on the right hand side. So that's actually that's kind of a neat look. Maybe. So all the options are to the right. So if you change one here, that's the only one you're allowed to have. But if you use Alt on a PC or Option on a Mac, you can actually add to your selection. And now you can see here that I've got two different, here we go, I'm going to back that down a little bit. I've got two different filters, but they're also interchangeable, just like layers. All right, so we can play around with all sorts of these. So there's a lot more that we could add. Okay, so I just replaced my watercolor, which I didn't want to do. So if I want to bring that back, Control or Command Z, you have to hold the Option key if you want to add more. So if I bring that one underneath, I can change the way this looks. So I can get lots of different looks. And again, it takes playing around with it to see what works and what doesn't work. So you can get some really cool effects just by goofing around. Once you find something that you really like that turned out really cool, write down the things that you chose, the filters that you chose, and in order of how you did them, so that you can repeat it another time if that's a look that you like. Okay, so I could have something like this, but I decided in my history palette I'm going to go backwards to my last one. So that's the filter gallery. Also under the filter menu is Sharpen. So if your image isn't sharp enough, you can go under the filter gallery, go to Sharpen, and my favorite one is called Smart Sharpen. And the reason for that is, I'm going to zoom out here so we can see my image here. There we go. So why do I like this window? I'm going to expand that so you can see it. Why I like Smart Sharpen the most is because I have a lot of custom things that I can do here. But I can also like motion blur. If you have a motion in your camera where you moved side to side, you can actually fix that, and you can even change the direction, the angle of what the shake was. So if your subject moved side to side, you would keep it side to side. If your subject moved up and down, so you have a bit of a blur up and down because you captured the moment when they slightly moved, and your camera wasn't fast enough to get a quick, easy, clear shot, you can change that here in motion blur. So the one I'm going to use is Gaussian blur. And let's see what the before looks like. So I'm holding it down. The easiest place to see it is in my hair. So if I increase that, let's see what it does. Can you see that definition now in my hair and around my eyes? So if I hold my mouse down, that's the before. That's the original photo. And if I let go, okay, there we go. Now you see this wicked definition. So you decide to go as high or low as you want on that. So what my suggestion is to always zoom in on the details. Look at that detail. So if I hold down, that's the original. And if I let go, it'll redraw with the sharpness. So if that's a little too sharp, then just bring it down a little bit and make sure your preview is turned on. So let's see, here's the before, here's the after. So I've sharpened those features, and I'm going to click OK. So here we go. Going to move that back into the scene. So if I go back to the original, there's the before I sharpened it, and there's the after. Pretty insane how that really defines each and every hair in here. If I don't like the way that looks, I can go back to Liquify, and I can, let's see, I'm going to Control Z instead, or Command Z, and if I go under Edit, it should allow me to redo that. Let's see, I wonder if it's still there. Oh, redo scale change. No, I'll have to see what I can do with that. Here we go. So now that I have this nice sharp image, check the next video for using the healing brush and the clone stamp. So that'll be the next video. So this was about the filters, the filter gallery. So lots of neat artistic filters you can use. Liquify, that's how I increased my smile using a simple tool there. And sharpening your file. So if you need to sharpen the image a little bit, that's where you'll find it. And again, my favorite one to use out of all of these is Smart Sharpen. All right, that's it for this video. Next one, a few more tools.